In the last lesson, I introduced the circle of fifths, but you may have noticed that we stayed within a single key. For example, in the key of C, we moved from E minor to A minor to D minor, and then to G major, C major, F major, moving counterclockwise around the circle of fifths. But we can also use a chromatic circle of fifths with all major chords to create strong dominants, dominant chords that lead us to the next chord around the circle of fifths. If you pick a note in the circle of fifths and go one step to the right, you get the dominant or the 5 of the scale beginning with that note. If you go 2 steps to the right, you get the dominant of the dominant, or what we call the secondary dominant. For example, in the key of C, the dominant is G, and the secondary dominant is D. Sometimes we call it the 5 of 5. Just like with a dominant chord, adding a 7th to a secondary dominant helps propel the sequence to the dominant chord. In I Call Your Name, the verse makes use of secondary dominants. The song is in the key of E. If we stuck with chords in the scale, the sequence would sound like this. But the Beatles use all dominant 7th chords to set up a sequence of secondary dominants. Moving around the circle of fifths, we have C sharp 7 to F sharp 7 to B7, and then finally we'll go back to E. Let's hear it with the full arrangement. In Good Day Sunshine, the verse travels around the circle of fifths, with each chord leading to the next. It's another variation of our Heart and Soul sequence, but with all major chords. We go from F sharp 7th to B 7th to E 7 to A, and then repeat the sequence again: F sharp 7, B 7, E 7, A. Her Majesty is an example of using both minor and major dominant chords. So we go from a B 7th major to an E minor 7th to an A 7 major to D, and then we repeat that sequence again. You can find the same combination of minor and major dominant chords in No Reply. Here we go from the C chord, the 1 chord, to the major 3, E, and then moving around the circle of fifths to A and D minor, to the 6th chord, major, and to the minor D minor. Your Mother Should Know winds its way from A minor to the relative major, C major, using the circle of fifths. We start with A minor, we move later to an A7, which propels us to a D minor, G7, and a C, right around the circle of fifths. We repeat that sequence again, A, D, G7, C, and then we end the verse with an E7, which propels us back to the A minor. In all of these examples, we use the dominant 7th chord to propel us to the tonic, the next step along the circle of fifths. But we can also use those dominant seventh chords in a very sneaky way by making them non-functioning secondary dominants. They don't go where they're supposed to go. And we'll talk about that in the next lesson.